Somebody said to me, what about snitches? What about rats? And my comment to them fucked their head up because I said, what about them? What does that mean to me? Oh, but bro, you sitting here talking about niggas need to do better after jail and blah, blah, blah. What about snitches and rats? And to this I say, I don't speak snitch and rat because snitch and rat is prison terms. That's street terms. I'm above the streets, literally. And figuratively. So why would I care if somebody is a snitch or a rat? My mindset is logical. What is a snitch? What is a rat? What are the circumstances of their snitchitude and their ratitas? You're not just going to label somebody a snitch or a rat to me and tell me to watch that person because that person is disloyal. You see, I look deeper than that, and I encourage other people to look deeper than that because I'm forced to ask myself a lot of existential questions, specifically about the street code and how they violate it. So now, let's use a famous case, Tekashi 6ix9ine. Tekashi 6ix9ine is considered a rat and a snitch and all of that. And by street logic, he is. But my question to you people is, what the fuck else was he supposed to do? Now, I know what you're thinking. He should have ate them years. He should have ate those years. Maybe he should have. Who am I to say he shouldn't have? But my question to this is, if you have people that turn on you first, how can those same people demand loyalty from you? How can the streets demand that you be loyal to disloyal people? Some of y'all cut off your family. That bitch did not write me a letter while I was locked up. That was disloyal. She can't ask me for not a dime because she didn't send me a dime while I was doing my bid because that was disloyal. But that nigga that put a hit out on you, tried to shoot you, be loyal to that nigga. Take them 20 years for that nigga that tried to kill you. That makes sense. Take them years to that nigga that fucked your girl while you was locked up. That makes sense. I guess. See, we confuse snitching and telling too. Here's what a snitch is to me. A snitch is somebody who uses information and cooperation against somebody else that they should be loyal to improve their own situation. Little kid snitch, off instinct. Grandma said, who broke this glass? Oh, nobody know who did it? I'm going to whoop everybody's ass. So now we're all in danger. So one kid steps right up and says, Taekwon did it. Did he snitch? Was he being disloyal? Maybe. But let me ask you this. Wasn't Taekwon being disloyal? He broke that glass, but he was willing to let all the other kids get a beating with him. With him. Rather than man up and take account for what he did. Now, of course, I'm speaking in terms of kids, but the same shit applies every day. If you have a co-D and your co-D did X, Y, and Z, and you didn't, but you're a co-D, you robbed the store. You went in there and you had your gun out and you ran in that store and you robbed that store. But you didn't shoot nobody. Taekwon did. So now you're both caught. Both facing murder charges. It is entirely feasible in most cases for the shooter to exonerate those who didn't shoot, at least of the shooting. Now, of course, with RICO laws, it's harder, but it's also harder for them to get a conviction if you literally have the shooter exonerating. And some of the OGs up top have done that. Believe it or not, they have done that. So I would ask this: who is really being loyal and who is really the snitch? You literally signed paperwork that we both did this. If you cop out. So now you put my name on paperwork the other way. So am I wrong for taking my name out of it and saying you just did it? That's the moral dilemma of a snitch. Now, what is a rat? A rat and a snitch are not the same thing. A rat was never loyal to you. A rat infiltrated for the whole purpose of helping the other side get to you. Stop using these terms interchangeably. They're not the same thing. A rat was your enemy all along, and you didn't know it. So you went along believing that this person was loyal, and now, thanks to a situation coming up, you know that they were never loyal. It wasn't the situation that changed them. It was the situation that exposed them. So how many people in your life right now that you're loyal to, willing to take that bid for, willing to jump out the window for? That's a rat. You won't know because the situation that would expose that ratness just hasn't come up yet. Maybe they won't rat on you because they're facing 5 years, but they might rat because it's 25 years. Consider this. And this is the danger of living this lifestyle that a lot of my brothers are living. You don't know. You want to believe you know. That's what the code of the streets provides, the fake sense that you do know. But you never know. Because you can't know. Human nature is an X factor. So, what about rats? What about snitches? Well, like I said, it's on a case-by-case basis. I can forgive a snitch. Why can I forgive a snitch? Because I understand human nature. And I understand there are extenuating circumstances to somebody cooperating. I can't forgive a rat because you were always that. You were always a POS. Just because nobody knew it. And the difference on how you can tell the two is one don't need provocation. A snitch will, I'll give you a perfect example. I knew this kid. He was caught up in a big drug case. He did not want to cooperate. If anybody had a reason to cooperate, it was him, but he did not want to cooperate. Believing that nobody else would cooperate, but others did. But nobody exonerated him either. Nobody. And if there was ever somebody who had no business going to prison, it was this kid. But nobody exonerated him. Nobody. And they were willing to let this kid face 20 years, if not longer. 20 years that would have been difficult for this kid. I seen real street dudes show this kid mercy because they knew he wasn't about that. He just was lost trying to find himself. And he thought he found himself in the street. But my question is, where was the dude saying, nah, Me and you could do this bid, but him, nah, he can't do it. Wasn't one. Wasn't one. Everybody turned into self. And that's the danger of being in the street. But I could see past him telling, or I could see past his cooperating. It hurt him to cooperate. He felt like everything that people in the street say that they are. So I have no static with him. Not at all. I understand there's brothers who do. I don't. I don't look at him one way or the other. If you're willing to die for a cause and learn that the cause isn't willing to die for you, well, then I can't blame you for no longer being willing to die for that cause. But now, on the other hand, I've known some rats. I've known plenty of rats, and I watched them. And the funny thing about rats is, sometimes rats are at the top of the food chain. Everybody thinks they're the most gangster because they never folded. There's one caveat that niggas in the street don't understand the word yet. That nigga never folded yet. The nigga never had to yet. Because everything he's come up against so far, he can handle. But what happens when he comes across something he can't handle, my nigga? Consider this. Because push come to shove, that loyalty going right out the window. So why are you loyal to it? But what about snitches? What about rats? The real question I would say is, what about you? What about you? How perfect are you with the street code? How much did you cooperate that nobody knows about? I worked in a law library in 2 prisons. And I've had everybody's paperwork in front of me, from murderers to rapists. And a whole lot of gang members. Because you find that a lot of the younger gang members are people who dropped out of school at an early age, and therefore they don't understand how to read everything. And even though they can read, in fairness to them, legal work, since is written in its own kind of language, own kind of jargon, as they call it, their own nomenclature. So a lot of them would get legal work and letters from their lawyers, appealing their cases, that they didn't really understand what the paperwork was telling them. And as I'm reading this paperwork, it's telling me a lot about their cases. And they know that. They may not know exactly what it says, but they know what they did, and they're skeptical about letting me see it, because I might put 2 and 2 together because they know I know what it says. And they just don't know if what they're scared it says is in there. And a lot of times it's in there. Officer stated, subject was, extremely cooperative. Identified blah, blah, blah. But that'll be the same nigga who will go outside in the yard and say, I don't fuck with that nigga because he's a snitch. He's a rat. So again, what about snitches and rats? Let's stop throwing these blanket terms around and start looking at what people really are and what people really do. And let's look at the people who they supposedly did it to. Individual conduct. Be your own man. Think for yourself. That's what about Snitches and Rats. What do you think about this nigga that they call a snitch? Or this nigga that they call a rat? Not about snitches and rats. My mind is my own. Your mind should be your own. And if you've been through a bid, if you lived in these streets, you have enough sense to tell what's right and what's wrong. And you don't need some blanket, non-thinking ass code to tell you what's right and wrong. You can figure out on a case-by-case basis what you're willing to accept and what you're not willing to accept. And then move on from there. Real talk.